Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at two almost identical full-size trucks. We're talking about the 2022 Chevrolet Silverado ZR2 and the GMC Sierra AT4X. These are very identical. GMC is a little bit more on the luxury side compared to the Chevrolet version, so it's going to cost a little bit more, as that's reflected in their MSRPs. The ZR2 is right around $72,000, with the AT4X closer to $76,000. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at a lot of their similarities, some of the minor differences between both of these trucks, take a look at the exteriors, interiors, also take them for a test drive, and then we'll come back with our final thoughts between both of these full-size trucks. So I'm going to start off with what powers both of these. Underneath the hood is a 6.2 liter V8 paired to a 10-speed automatic transmission. It pumps out 420 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. That power is sent to the rear wheels. However, both of these trucks do have the four-wheel drive system. They weigh in right around 5,800 pounds. Will do 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds with a top speed right around 100 miles an hour. And they have a fuel capacity of 24 gallons. You'll expect to see around 14 miles per gallon in the city and 18 out on the highway. Now, as far as off-roading both of these full-size trucks, because the ZR2 and the ATX4 are the off-road focused models for both of these trucks, the ZR2 has an approach angle of 31.8 degrees, a breakover angle of 23.4, a departure angle of 23.3, and its ground clearance measures in at 11.2 inches. Now, over on the AT4X, it's a little bit less. We have an approach angle of 25.4, a breakover angle of 22.7, a departure angle of 25.9, and then the ground clearance is 10.7 inches. Now, as we move on to the exterior for this ZR2, it has the hollow Chevy bow tie right in the middle, finished off in chrome, with the rest of the grille having gloss black accents and plenty of cutouts to provide cooling to this engine. There's two red tow hooks down below to give it a little bit of flair, along with the red inner housing of that hollow bow tie. This even has a forward-facing camera, which is very helpful, especially when taking this off-road. I'll link a video down in the description if you want to see this exact truck in the dirt. Those camera systems are phenomenal, especially for the size of this. Now, this even has LED headlights, DRLs, and turn signals. Really unique design for that turn signal and DRL, with the bodywork running right in the middle of it. I love how everything flows nicely, especially for the size of this truck. And then there's some massive bulges in the hood with some gloss black accents just to tie it in nicely with that entire front end. Now, as we move over to the AT4X now, the front end is a little bit different, being the GMC, of course. GMC is spelled out right in the middle. The grille has a much different design to it. It's less aggressive compared to the ZR2, very clean lines flowing through. This does have that 360 camera system as well. Plenty of cutouts in that grille too. There's a lot more body colored work, like the lower bumper. Tow hooks are finished off in red as well. There are fog lights down in that lower bumper too. It still retains the LED headlights, DRLs, and turn signals in a much different design. Very sleek, not as aggressive like I mentioned earlier, but I love how it flows nicely on the sides of the grille. And then for the hood, not as aggressive, very clean lines meeting the top of that hood. So it gives it more of that luxury style for this pickup truck. Now, as we move on to the side, like I mentioned earlier, this has a set of 33-inch tires with an 18-inch wheel and that 2-inch lift kit, which gives it a lot of ground clearance. The ZR2 also gets a set of rock sliders, so when you're taking this off-road, you have that added protection up underneath the doors. This has the plastic side mirrors with the gloss black end caps. There's also a camera on the mirrors, which is again very helpful for off-road. There's a turn signal too, and then gloss black on the door handles just to tie it in nicely. This has the short bed, which gives it a great design. Over on the AT4X, like I mentioned earlier, 33s, 18-inch wheel, 2-inch lift kit. It's surprising though to see that with the overhangs for the AT4X, it's not as off-road focused as the ZR2. So if you don't really plan on taking your full-size truck off-road, you can go with this one to get a little bit more luxuries, as you'll see here once we enter the inside. It does, however, still have the rock sliders from the factory. So it's great to see that while it's still not really off-road focused, it has that protection as needed. Same side mirrors as on the ZR2, so again, very similar. Door handles are body colored, more on that luxury side, aiming for that. However, there is plastic trim around the fender flares like you saw over on the ZR2. Now finishing up for the rear, on the ZR2 there are steps in the bumpers. Has a nice design to it with that multi-flex tailgate. This even has LED taillights which have a great design to it. And it also has a backup camera. There are parking sensors in that bumper as well. You can even open up that tailgate by using the key fob, which is perfect if you're using this truck all the time. And those side steps, like I mentioned earlier, there is a handle that you can flip up, so that way it makes it easier to enter and exit. And then you can also flip the entire tailgate down with that multi-function purpose that it has. Very awesome to see that, especially for this truck. It is much easier to enter and exit. Now for the rear end of the GMC, this has a backup camera. The rear bumper is body colored, so a lot of body colored accents. This has the LED taillights. Same identical tailgate too, so you can open that using the key fob. And then we have the same functions being an identical tailgate. Now the one thing that the GMC offers over the ZR2 is the Kicker audio sound system built into this tailgate. So you can hook up to Bluetooth with your phone, listen to music, you can charge electronics. It's pretty cool to see that. It is a pricey option, but if you're using the truck, you're tailgating a lot, it is definitely worth it. And then as we move on to the interior now, for the ZR2, these interiors are going to be very identical. Now in the back of the ZR2, I am 5'10". I have plenty of room for my feet and my legs, and a few inches above my head. This is a full-size truck. It's going to give you that full-size space you're looking for to not only put people in the back, but to also give you an ample amount of interior room, especially when you fold up these seats. You have a lot of storage space that you can use, and then there's even some storage behind the backrest of the seat, perfect for some smaller items that you'd like to place out of the way. Now over on the AT4X, the rear seats is pretty much identical. There's really no differences. You can flip up the seats, plenty of room for anything that you need. The back seats are even heated, which was available over on the ZR2, and there's the same amount of storage space, so they are virtually identical. Now as we move on to the technology features for both of these, in the ZR2 we have an all-new digital gauge cluster that gives you a lot of information. You can go through different settings just depending on the layout that you'd like to see. And over on the AT4X now, it is an identical gauge cluster, so there's really no differences. The graphics might be slightly different. It's going to be hard to see, but a few of the pages are slightly different, being different trucks of course, but overall they are virtually identical. And what I love all new for the ZR2 and for this AT4X is the all new infotainment system right in the middle. There are so many different settings that you can go through, and I love the sizing of this, especially for these full-size trucks. It gives you a lot of information to go through. You can look at the 360 camera system, just go through everything that you'd like to. So these are identical systems. And then just underneath the screen for this ZR2, there's a few toggles where you can go through your lane keeping assist, parking sensors. You can even lock the front and rear lockers individually. There's a downhill assist control along with traction control and being able to deploy the tailgate. And then underneath that is all the climate adjustments nicely laid out. There's the heated and ventilated seats, trailer braking system as well. And then over on the ZR2, very, very identical. However, you'll notice that all the same adjustments for the locking diff, tailgate, parking sensors, lane keeping assist, they are all underneath the climate adjustments rather than underneath the screen. So it is a slightly different layout. However, all those toggles are identical. Both of these also had the digital camera in the rear view mirror, which is common for the GMC and Chevrolet models. I think it is a great system to have. And I love this interior update. I love the size of these screens. It's definitely a much needed upgrade, especially for this truck, its price point, and what it's competing against as well. And just on a side note, with a mild acceleration, just getting up to speed, that was easy. The ZR2 is the off-road package, so this truck is meant for off-road. As I mentioned earlier, check out that video if you want to see us taking this through the trails, because surprisingly, this did pretty well for a full-size truck and the narrow trails that we had to throw at it for the day. And you're really not sacrificing any of the off-road capabilities that the suspension has for your on-road driving. Let's face it, with the size of this truck and what it's designed for, you're going to be seeing pavement pretty much all of the time. And so now as we switch over to the POV angle behind the wheel of the all-new ZR2, you can get a feel for what it's like to be behind the wheel. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a tall truck, so when we have smaller vehicles passing us, I can pretty much see over all of the roofs of these trucks. Even another full-size truck like that, we are definitely a little bit taller. So it gives you a good presence when you're driving this down the road. What I love about this Sierra is it's a little bit more luxurious feeling than the Chevrolet version. We have the full Alcantara headliner and a little bit more leather in some areas that you don't see in the Silverado. So really it just depends on which truck you like better. So this is a very capable truck, both on-road and off-road. And what I love, I've been driving this around a few days just to get more familiar with this truck. It's a really smooth driving truck. I love the suspension both on-road and off-road. It does very well. I had the bed full of some plywood. I was even able to fit two 8-foot 2x4s from the passenger footwell up to the back. Since I didn't have room in the bed for them because it was so full, I actually fit 8-footers inside with all the windows closed. Very capable. I can't do that in my Tacoma, which is obviously a lot smaller than this. And as we get onto the on-ramp now, definitely plenty of power with an empty truck here to get up to emerging speeds. I will say I do wish it had more of the steering intervention. We have the lane keeping assist, which you can turn on and off. But if you get to one side or the other, obviously that'll just put you back in the lane, but it's not the true driving assistance. So if you're going around a slight curve, it's not going to do the turn for you. It's just going to kind of get you back into place. And so now coming back to our final thoughts between the ZR2 and the AT4X, honestly, I would go with the ZR2. Not only is it less expensive, but I think it's also more capable off-road. It has more ground clearance, a better approach, breakover, and departure angle as well. And while it's not quite as luxurious, the AT4X has a little bit more leather and some other features like that. There's more leather on the dash. Both of these trucks have heads-up displays, so there are minor differences for that $4,000 or $5,000 price difference between both of these top trim levels for Chevy and GMC. So if you want something a little bit more luxurious, you can go with the AT4X, but if you are actually taking the truck off-road, go with the ZR2. I think it has a much cooler look to it, with the cutouts in the front to give it that better approach angle compared to completely covered on the ATX4. And personally, I'm a huge fan of blue, so this ZR2 being finished off in blue really made it look that much better in my opinion. But honestly, they are virtually identical. They both have a towing capacity right under 10,000 pounds, so they're very capable for the sizing of these full-size trucks, but it really just depends on your budget. Now, these are expensive trucks. Above $70,000 is pretty pricey for a truck, but you have to remember you're paying for the capabilities and the practicality of using a full-size truck and what it's designed for. These are also going to be great daily drivers. With that off-road tuned suspension, they're actually very practical to drive on-road, and they are very smooth. So you're not sacrificing any on-road performance for the off-road performance that they do have. Now, these are not hardcore off-roaders, but they do have all the technology features to take you off the pavement and get you back on the pavement once you're done. So comment down below, which truck would you pick and why? If you enjoyed today's video, give it a huge thumbs up and consider smashing that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our daily uploads. I will see you all in the next video.